Chapter 11, Part 2. I think we should knock her out when we grab her. That way there won't be any screams. Not to mention any blue fire when she figures out she's being kidnapped. I already said how we're going to do it, Jazz cut in flatly. I don't want her knocked out, and I don't think she'll be able to hurt us. Now, everybody get ready. Off you go, Thistle. As Thistle skipped across the street, Morgan let out a sharp breath. His jaw was tight. You never could take advice, Jazz, and you never could take orders. She could see him starting to sizzle, but only out of the corner of her eyes. Most of her attention was focused on the housing building. It was such a desolate place. No graffiti, but no grass either. A couple of dispirited trees in front, and that playground with a blue metal slide and a few motorcycles on springs to ride, all looking new and untouched. Imagine growing up in a place like this, she said. Pierce laughed oddly. You sound as if you feel sorry for her. Jazz glanced back. There was no sympathy in his deep set dark eyes, and none in Raven's midnight blue or Vale's hazel ones either. Funny, she didn't remember them being that heartless. But of course she hadn't been sensitive to the issue back in the old days. She would never have stopped to wonder about what they felt for human children. It's because it's a kid, Morgan said briskly. It's hard on any kid growing up in a place like this. Jazz glanced at him, surprised. She saw in his emerald green eyes what she'd missed in the other, a kind of bleak pity. Then he shrugged, and the expression was gone. Partly to change the subject, and partly because she was curious, she said, Morgan, do you know the prophecy with the line about the blind maiden's vision? What? This one? He quoted. For to stand between the light and the shadow, four of blue fire, power in their blood, born in the year of the blind maiden's vision, four less one and darkness trumps. Yeah, what do you think? Born in the year of the blind maiden's visions means. He looked impatient. Well, the maiden has to be Arida, right? Arida, right? What's that? Who's that? Bell interrupted, his linebacker body quivering with interest. Morgan gave Jazz one of his humoring Bell looks. The maiden of the witches, he said. You know, the blind girl. The maiden part of the maiden, mother and crone group that rules all the witches. She's only one of the most important people in the night world. Oh, yeah, I remember. Bell settled back. I agree, Jess said. The blind maiden has to be Aridia. But what does the year of her vision mean? How old is this kid we're snatching? About 8, I think. Did Aridia have some special vision 8 years ago? Morgan was staring across the street. Now, his eyebrows together. How should I know? She's been having visions since she went blind, right? Which means like 17 years worth of them. Who's supposed to tell which one the poem means? What you mean is that you haven't even tried to figure it out? Jazz said icily. He threw her an evil glance. You're so smart. You do it. Jazz said nothing, but she made up her mind to do just that. For some reason, the poem bothered her. Iridia was 18 now and had been having visions since she lost her sight at the age of 1. Some particular vision must have been special. Otherwise, why would it be included in the prophecy? It had to be important, and part of Jazz's mind was worried about it. Just then she saw movement across the street. A brown metal door was opening, and two small figures were coming out. One with feathery blonde hair, the other with tiny dark braids. They were hand in hand. Something twisted inside Jazz. Just stay calm. Stay calm, she told herself. It's no good to think about grabbing her and making a run for the East Bay. They'll just follow you, track you down. Stay cool and you'll be able to get the kid free later. Yeah, after Morgan does his little test. But she stayed cool and didn't move, breathing slowly and evenly as Thistle led the other girl down the stairs. When they reached the sidewalk, Jazz pressed the starter button. She didn't say now. She didn't need to. She just peeled out, knowing the others would follow like a flock of well trained ducklings. She heard their engines roar to life, sensed them behind her in tight formation, and she headed straight for the sidewalk. The wild power kid wasn't dumb. When she saw Jazz's motorcycle coming at her, she tried to run. Her mistake was that she tried to save Thistle too. She tried to pull the little blonde girl with her, but Thistle was suddenly strong, grabbing the chain link fence with a small hand like steel, holding them both in place. Jazz swooped in and caught her target neatly around the waist. She swooped the child onto the saddle facing her, felt the small body thud against her, felt hands clutch at her automatically for balance. Then she whipped past a parked car, twisted the throttle to get a surge of speed, and flew out of there. Behind her, she knew Raven was snagging Thistle, and the others were all following. There wasn't a scream or even a sound from the housing project. They were roaring down Taylor Street. They were passing the high school. They were making it away clean. Hang on to me or you'll fall off and get hurt, Jazz yelled to the child in front of her, making a turn so fast that her knee almost scraped the ground. She wanted to stay far enough ahead of the others that she could talk. Take me back home, the kid yelled it, but not hysterically. She hadn't shrieked even once. Jazz looked down at her and found herself staring into deep velvety brown eyes, solemn eyes. They looked reproachful and unhappy, but not afraid. Jess was startled. She suspected crying, terror, anger, but she had the feeling that this kid wouldn't even be yelling if it hadn't been the only way to be heard. Maybe I should have been more worried about what she'll do to us. Maybe she can call Blue Fire down to kill people. Otherwise, how can she be so composed when she's just been kidnapped? But those brown eyes, they weren't the eyes of somebody about to attack. They were, Jess didn't know what they were, but they reached at her heart. Look, Iona, right? That's your name? The kid nodded. Look, Iona, I know this seems weird and scary, having somebody just grab you off the street. And I can't explain everything now, but I promise you, you're not going to get hurt. Nothing's going to hurt you, okay? I want to go home. Oh, kid, so do I, Jess thought suddenly. She had to blink hard. I'm going to take you home, or at least someplace safe, she added as honesty unexpectedly kicked in. There was something about the kid that made her not want to lie. But first, we've got to go to a friend of mine's house. But look, no matter how strange all this seems, I want you to remember something. I won't let you get hurt, okay? Can you believe that? My mom is going to be scared. Jess took a deep breath and headed onto the freeway. I promise I won't let you get hurt, she said again. And that was all she could say. She felt like a centaur, some creature that was half person and half steel horse, carrying off a human kid at 60 miles an hour. It was pointless to try to make conversation on the freeway, and I only didn't speak again until they were roaring up to Morgan's building. Then she said simply, I don't want to go in there. It's not a bad place, Jess said, breaking front and back. We're going up on the roof. There's a little garden there. A tiny flicker of interest showed in the solemn brown eyes. Four other bikes pulled in beside Jazz. Yeehaw! We got her, Belle yelled, pulling off his helmet. Yeah, and we better take her upstairs before somebody sees us, Raven said, tossing her dark hair so it fell over one eye again. Thistle was climbing off the back of Raven's motorcycle. Jazz felt the small body in front of her stiffen. Thistle looked at Iona and smiled her sharp-toothed smile. Iona just looked back. She didn't say a word, but after a minute, Thistle flushed and turned away. So now we're going to test her, right? It's time to test her, isn't it, Morgan? Jess had never heard Thistle's voice so shrill, so disturbed. She glanced down at the child in front of her, but Morgan was speaking. Yeah, it's time to test her, he said, sounding unexpectedly tired for somebody who just pulled off such a tramp, who just caught a wild power that was going to make his career. Let's get it over with. The end of chapter 11, part 2. Chapter 12, part 1 is coming up shortly.